Briggs, in 1961, you made a journey to the centre of Australia, to Ayers Rock, known as Uluru by the Aborigines. Tell us how you got there.
Well, I met Bill Harney there.
Bill Harney.
Yes. He was ranger at Ayers Rock at the time.
Right.
He'd written a book, and he wrote many books, of course. And he was in Perth. I met him, and he asked me if I would come to Ayers Rock, and to come immediately.
And you just dropped everything and
I
went?
dropped everything and went, yes.
Why?
Well, he made it sound very urgent that I should go. It was a good season to go. At that time of the year, it was mid-year.
And was that the only reason?
No, no, no. He felt that the material he had was so valuable, and because I was a writer and lecturer, he thought that I would do something with it.
But there was no other sort of intuitive reason that you...
Yes, there was, actually. I'd had a dream when I was studying in Switzerland that I had been asked by an Aboriginal boy to go into the desert, and I had refused.
Do you know why you refused?
Well, it was a dream. Now, I can't tell you why. The thing I remembered was that I refused. And then I had another in which he was in the desert with me.
The same boy?
Yes. And I had I wanted to go back and not stay there because I had to keep an eternal fire burning. Now, he just sat down with two rocks and rubbed them together and brought about a fire, which was, of course, quite a philosophical revelation for me.
So you put this idea of the fire together with Bill Harney's request, and off you went.
Yes, yes. I felt that now I could answer the dream and go and do something. It seemed to me that a question had been put to me.
Did you feel that these dreams fitted with Bill Harney's invitation to Uluru?
Yes, and even more, because as Bill had told me, the rituals were very remarkable, and I was very interested in ritual.
I've just flown over Ayers Rock and seen it from the air, and I know how extraordinary it looked from there. You came upon it from a completely different direction.
Yes, I did. Coming overland, of course, we came with a very dusty way in those days. The roads were not good. And we came first to Mount Connor. There are several other mountains or ranges around Ayers Rock, but not too near, such as the Algas and the Petermann Ranges. But we, of course, were making for Ayers Rock itself.
And there was Bill Harney to meet you?
Yes, he was there to meet me, and so was Minion Derry, who was an Aboriginal who lived at the Rock. He and his wife Eva lived there. He was initiated there 50 years before.
And he knew this ritual?
Oh yes, he knew it very well, and he was one of the people who really wanted it recorded.
And they trusted Bill Harney?
Well, I would have had they had no access to them except through Bill Harney.
So tell us how, Bill Harney, of course, was married to an Aborigine, wasn't he?
He was at one time, yes.
Tell us how he managed to garner all this information.
Well, it took him nearly 2 years. When he was appointed as ranger at Ayers Rock, mind, he'd been connected with Aboriginal affairs all his life. And when he was appointed there, he asked for 2 of the original initiates, well, from the 50 years ago, to be with him. He had a Windralga and a Malawadi, and I think he had others as well. They went around the rock with him. They'd tell a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, and they chanted right around the rocks, all the chants of the rituals.
And he took this down?
He took it all down. He spoke their languages. His job then was to make a billy of tea and what they called sit alongside a billy of tea. And then they would talk to him and tell him the meanings of everything that they'd given to him.
And the next year he died, isn't that right?
Yes, unfortunately.
So this was, in fact, the last occasion on which the Aborigines who lived there then and were initiates had the chance of recording the whole thing.
I think so, yes.
Well, it was a remarkable feat to have just managed to capture this at the last moment.
I was very privileged.
And clearly then it travels from one side to the other. Can you explain about
Oh, yes.
shadow side, isn't it?
Yes, the actual ritual is on the Sunover side. You see, it faces north,
Yes,
as the Sunover side, so it always has sun on it.
I see.
And then that is known as the Sunover.
And it's never in shade, that side.
Not in shade, that side.
Then the other side must always be in shade.
The other side gets shade, yes, and the shade side is the side of living, because on that side is the wonderful waterfalls that come down from the top of the rock, and a lot of trees. And there are about 30 edible plants there around the rock that the Aboriginals use.
What you had access to was a complete, let's say, circumambulation
Yeah.
of this extraordinary place with the ritual incorporated.
Yeah, that was right. With the ritual movements incorporated.
Was it a sort of place of pilgrimage for many tribes, do you think?
There were many tribes came there. The tribes that we will follow were the Malawadi and the Windralga.
I see.
There were so many, but they all had their own particular rituals. I will say one thing, that it has a remarkable feeling to be there. We stood at the Weibo, which is the beginning, where you will begin the tour.
journey.
And standing there in the dawn with only Gilhani, there were no people at the rock when we were there. And it gives one the feeling of being at the beginning of time. The rock had a remarkable effect on them.
Minyanderi chanted for you.
Oh yes, he chanted for me. He started to do the chants, and he couldn't do them. He started and he would stop and stop and stop. And Bill knew what was wrong, and Bill went and got some tapping sticks for him.
Ah,
And as soon as he got the tapping sticks and he could tap with them, you will hear them in the film, he was able to sing the chants. Actually, this is one of the things that Bill said, you cannot stop them in anything. The flow of the ritual and everything, if you ask questions, and that's why he didn't ask questions, was because you stopped the flow for them, and they would get lost.
the actual ritual we will follow is the Kurunguru, or Great Mother ritual of the Malawadi tribe, the Kangaroo Rat Men. The ritual section is on the northern side, the Sunover side of the rock. The beginning place of the ritual is known as the Weibo, meaning tail. It is well known to tourists as the beginning of the climb up the rock. This long tail is, mythologically, the tail of the sleeping kangaroo rat. It belongs to the crouched body of the first Dreamtime Mala totem. When there is an abundance of food in the area, messengers go out from the Weibo to call the tribespeople in for the ritual time. They carry carved message sticks. After much preparation, which includes carving the message sticks and gathering and preparing ceremonial materials, attention is given to personal decoration. The all-important feature of this cosmetic activity is to paint sternal cavities with charcoal and fat. In so doing, they are copying the dark stains on the mountain face caused by running water. The blackness of the charcoal symbolizes birth and beginning of all things. The central black mark is the sign of the Great Mother. The lines which follow the depression in the rib cage, the lesser black stains, represent the creative heroes who came to give the ritual chance. But the central sign of the rituals, and the most important, is this mother sign, called the Kambandura. It represents happiness in the mother. It follows that the beginning place in the ritual is the place of happiness. This ritual puts the participant in touch with the ancestors and provides the strength and security of belonging, not only to the tribe and the present, but to the whole of life, from the dream time to the present and the future. We speak of dream time. It is really more correct to say the dreaming. The dreaming has no time. It is a matter of coming and going, living and dying, all contained timelessly in the dreaming. At a point east of the Weibo, the ritual movements carry the tribesmen eastward towards the sunrise. In this place there are boulders known as the Sleeping Mala. They are the heroes of the dreaming who are being revivified through the rituals. Hidden behind these boulders is the entrance to a cave. This cave is smoke-blackened through ages of use. Some say this is the camp of the first man and woman of the dreaming. It is said that this is the place where the first Malawadi man, a dawn hero, slept. The cave is a very important one, even though it is not the actual ritual cave. It was from here that the dawn hero was carried up to the sky and given the ritual songs, which he then brought back to give to the people. Bill Harney said that these chants given to the first dawn hero run into 250,000 words. The chants are of paramount importance, for they preserve the whole theme of life for the Alturinga peoples. It is essential that they are repeated correctly by the songmen. They record a law which cannot be denied and which accounts for everything that affects their way of life. They are the chants of the Great Mother rituals. The chanters are the prophets who carry forward ceremoniously and instructively the whole content. The remarkable drive in man to survive is evident in this. He has occupied this continent for over 40,000 years, and he has come to the rock for at least 8,000 years. He did this over inhospitable terrain with an inspired knowledge of where to dig for water, what seeds to gather, knowledge that is embodied in the food-gathering chants. White man died on this terrain. The Aborigine did not. They were guided by the nature they revered and did not destroy. Their law requires the protection of all young things. Chants also preserve recipes, telling what and how to cook. All these are part of the Sun Overside rituals, as are chants on childbirth laws and the chants governing the sacred council of men and women. This side of the rock is the place of the catechism, baptizing, giving of godfathers, and all these facets are mentioned in the chants. Then there are the mapping chants, which outline tribal boundaries. Some of these take hours to sing. The mapping songs are associated with tribally marked boards, which are also maps. The tribesman must be attached to a certain place under certain conditions at certain times. This affords a stability within a nomadic way of life. This is not only a physical necessity, it is primarily a spiritual one. The Ranga, or spirit of the ancestors, is at a certain place, and that place is always the sacred place. It is the place where an old man prefers to die, so that his spirit finds its way back to its place of origin. Thus the chants are not only directive, they also incorporate religious theories on resurrection and reincarnation. In this cave of Dreamtime Heroes, which is not very extensive, one can still discern symbols of eternity on the smoke-blackened ceiling, swirling marks with a swastika form about them. These are the whirling boomerangs. There are a number of caves around with no ritual significance, but they look as if they were used probably as camps during this period. One interesting cave is that of the Itjeri Tjeri, the marsupial mole. The mythology connected with this cave is probably the property right of another clan. Another cave is that of the Dungaba. This cave has the first actual ritual significance. It looks like an orchestral sound shell, and it is known as such to the tourists. The overhanging lip of the shell represents the chests of the Mala ritual men. It is actually within this cave that the participants await the dawn of creation, that is, the ritual reliving the creative times. The ceremony of the Jungala begins in a darkness which lies over all the land. The blackness of the night, the great silence, is the time before creation. Men wait as silent as the silent night, crouching almost breathlessly. Suddenly, the voice of the Great Mother calls. The whirling of the bull roarer, the Kalagaroo. The tone of the bull roarer is impressive, even frightening, as it stirs some deep primordial urge. Now, as the creative mother strikes the earth with her great digging stick, known to the Aborigines as the Naltawadi, the sun searches the eastern sky with its golden fingers. Then, as a miracle, its golden disk appears over the horizon. All the world glows with the glow of day, and the world is created. Both the Kalagaroo and the sound are sacred, and it is probably now that the chant of happiness is sung, breaking in waves across the silence of a desert dawn. Here the chant says, "As a bull roarer." The "as" points to the fact that although the participants know what it is also something beyond and awe-inspiring. Such symbolic tokens can never be reduced to a nothing but. Thus the ritual is kept sacred in the same way as the host is bread made by human hands, but also is the body of Christ, sacred and mysterious. The silence and darkness in the stillness of the desert must have a profound effect on those tribesmen awaiting the dawn ritual. It is heavily charged with meaning. The tribesmen experience creation itself. They relive the time right at the place of all beginning. They hear the unearthly voice of the creative spirit breaking the silence at the moment of dawn. They see the mother spread golden light across the grey earth with the stroke of her Naltawadi. This is a newly created light, sparkling life into dew-drenched leaves. Birds and lizards stir as if newborn. Psychologically, surely such an experience brings with it a meaning, the meaning of living. White people who have experienced such rites say that they felt the mystery. They felt charged with something, though they could not name it. But that something gives meaning to life. Leaving the Jungaba, still moving eastwards, the next ritual place is the pouch of the marsupial mole, or pubic hair. It is a bell-shaped cave, or kulpa. Kulpa, an Aboriginal word, means shelter. Before this kulpa, which is sometimes known as the pelvic arch, the chant of reincarnation is sung, and the tale mimed of how spirit shades of Uluru people abide in the mountains, waiting to be reborn as spirit children. Also sung at this time are the chants for child increase. The actual place of physical birth is on the shade side of the rock, but the spiritual preparation for birth is performed at this place. In the foreground of the pelvic arch are potholes left from the fires made by the dawn heroes when they cooked and ate the first dawn meal. The dawn meal is celebrated in ritual reenactment. It was before these dawn-time cooking fires that the Great Mother danced the creative dance to bring forth human beings. She danced with the fruits of the earth upon her body, and as she danced, the children of the dreaming emerged from the great pelvic arch itself. One sees all through this mythology that the creative mother is the earth. She has to be obeyed. That, the Aborigines say, is absolutely an order, for her laws are economic. She says, always plant back a portion of a yam for the tribes that follow. She says, do not use what you find and lay the earth, my body, waste. If you don't obey, either you or someone will sometime go hungry. It is sensible to obey her for the protection of the tribe. If anyone disobeys, he is killed. She is the earth, and she is also in some way personified as feminine. We meet her as the center of happiness in the mark of the Kumbundara. We hear her as creatrix of the world in the roaring of the Kalaguru, and we see her also as a woman with the rays of the spirit about her head and the serpent beneath her feet. She says, when you see no clouds in the sky and see my sign, the nimbus, you will know it is the time of eternity and happiness, and you will gather in the tribes from the places I lay down to you, and they will be brought in and baptized. Now the rituals move on to the cave of the Bhutia. The Kulpe of Bhutia is the main camp or head place. It is the place of the mother paintings. One form represents the mother as the bull roarer, and the other as an initiate standing at her side. The mother is painted red, symbolizing ritual. The white radiating lines represent the spirit shades of the dead, who are contained in the state of great happiness in the mother and in readiness for rebirth. The dead have gone back to her, as we learned at the last Kulpe. In the center is an elongated black oval, the Kumbundura, which symbolizes birth and beginning and is the central core of the Great Mother. The initiate has no Kumbundura because he has not yet gone through the ritual rebirth. He has the white lines of one about to pass into the mother's womb. He is the Rulumbun. This aptly depicts the status of the initiate, as it means the bud about to burst into flower. There are many other markings in the Bubia cave. There are, among them, concentric circles, palm leaves, boomerangs, footprints in the form of a U shape. The latter are said to be the prints of the rainbow serpent, Wanambi, whose abode is at the rock. In another sector one finds bull roarers, more footprints, and what appears to be yet another version of the Earth Mother, with an initiate nearby. During ritual times, when the men have eaten the sacred meal, they face eastwards towards the camp of the women and chant the puta. In the women's camp, certain rituals were being enacted concurrently. At a point much later, the men join the women for united ritual. Up until now, participants have been concerned with the dawn mysteries, a creation which renews with every birth into the material world and has to do with all things young and new. Chants of reincarnation cease at the shelter of the mother paintings. From here on, the chants refer to regeneration, the mystery which ensures spiritual rebirth and preparation for death. The young initiates have not yet been a part of these proceedings. They have previously been taken away and trained by their mother's brother. They are taught songs of ritual and life, of tribal laws and secrets of the mother cult. It is at the mother place, the place of united ritual, that they chant the tribal code before the elders. When they sing the chants, any mistakes return to them. If their chants are correct, they pass into the dark body of the mother in readiness for rebirth. They have by this time been circumcised. The circumcision takes place during the period in the custody and tutelage of the uncle. There are also the ceremonies of being thrown into the air and being beaten towards the ritual ground by the women, from whom they are thus completely separated. These ceremonies all have tremendous psychological meaning. The throwing of the boy into the air represents his going up a child and coming down a man. The beating with twigs is symbolic of him being forced into life. The mother voluntarily surrenders her mother role to his masculine status. The severing of the tie with the mother is not only a personal but an archetypal demand. An Aboriginal woman would not dare to cling to her son against the social demand. She partakes of collectual ritual activities to ease his going into the world of warriors. This is the language of ritual which both mother and son understand and to which they give their consent. There is no blood tie between parents and child. The child is dreamed by the father, and the spirit enters the mother. So eventual separation and uncle tutelage make sense. Children are taught marriage laws very early. They also learn to memorize the mapping designs, skills which make them such remarkable trackers, a quality necessary for hunting and for protection, and a gift which has been used for the help of white people. So we see that the education of the initiates embraces all aspects of life. Initiation brings the realm of innate images and social images together. From now on, the initiate moves with the group in sympathy and with real knowledge. He has become one with the people with whom the whole of his life is to be concerned. What has this achieved, one might ask? Has this not been a loss of individuality? For the Australian Aborigine, the question is meaningless. For them, the group constitutes the ego. The individual and his community are moulded together. The youths who have gone through the proper circumcision rites take part in the next phase of the ritual. We are now entering the second phase of ritual behavior. This again is very masculine business, which excludes women. It is the period of catechism and confession. The first place of ritual importance in this is the kunju. The rock itself has an interesting formation. Here, at certain times of the day, two lights can be seen. For the Aborigine, one is the ordinary light of the sun overside, and the other is the twilight of the dreaming. In this area, running right down the rock face and ending near a cave, is a great rock fault. It was from here that the Mala of the dreaming drew the sacred wana, or Nultawadi, the digging stick of the Great Mother, from the cave. This is revivified in song. When the great stick was drawn away, the mother gave a great sigh, and in the sky appeared the nimbus of eternal life. This pole, or wana, becomes a central sign of the following ritual. It is obviously a separation from the mother and a raising of the masculine symbol. This digging stick, the creative Naltawadi, with which the Earth Mother smote the earth in the act of creation, was in fact part of herself, drawn from her side. She herself was separated, divided, when she created the world. The world was thus magically created out of herself. Here ritual refers to her as sexless, colorless, and indestructible. At this point, the mother takes on a more spiritual connotation. Through her own division and the raising of the Naltawadi, she is integrated into their lives. This Naltawadi is later used in ritual as a place of division between masculine and feminine mysteries. The physical features of this area have a cathedral-like appearance. The place has the atmosphere of a sanctuary. Dark stains down the rock face, are the signs of mother happiness. It is in this sanctuary that the tribal meeting is held. Participants cannot proceed with the rituals without this important business. All discussions pertaining to the tribe and all arguments and disagreements have to be cleared up before tribal elders. The ritual cannot proceed if there exists unsettled disputes among the ritual men or the initiates. For if the tribesmen arrive at a certain ritual point with evil in their hearts, then that very evil will return to them. It is wisdom, then, to proceed with purity in the heart. Above this place, to remind them, in case they should forget, are circular symbols of the mother's ever-watchful eye at the center. We saw such concentric circles in the mother cave. They have different connotations according to their different uses. No one meaning remains constant. When the initiate has been through the catechism, the tribal laws are again chanted, and he is shown such symbols of the creative mother. The men now sing, "With headdress we will dance in the dreaming. Lift up the ritual pole and go." As the participants proceed out of the Kunju, they pass another place which has nothing to do with the Malawadi ritual. This cave, named the Katut, has to do with the myth relating to the Olgas, from whence came the Kurapuni dog. We will meet him later. The participants continue to move eastwards and pass about 100 yards away from the rock face, the stone of Nawamara, which means pierced nasal septum. This was the place where some initiates had their nasal septums pierced by their mother's brother. Some tribesmen still have the pierced nose. Its main significance seems to have been to provide a cosmetic aid for more impressive ritual dressing. To wear the nose bone does not appear to be an integral part of the ceremonies themselves. Minyanderi did not have a pierced nose. However, there is a chant connected with this which says, "As the creative heroes pierce their noses, so we shall follow them." The next cave of ritual importance is the Kulpi of the Wariaki. The word Wariaki means forbidden to women. In front of this shelter, the participants erect their highly decorated ritual pole. For the observances at this Kulpi, the people are ritually divided. All tribes are divided into marriageable halves. Inside the shelter, the walls have great significance. A domed ceiling extends to the floor level, and the lower portion of this rock is darkly stained. These stains are said to be the blood of the first ritual heroes. On the floor is a phallic stone, surrounded by a circle of stones, which is now unfortunately pushed out of place. It is in this cave that men cut the median vein of their forearms and spill blood onto the walls, where it is thus ritually mixed with that of the ancestors. The sacrifice of blood is not only a gesture of recognition of ancestor spirits, but an assurance of their revivification. Not only do they need the ancestors and the ancestor laws, the ancestors need them, the ritual men, for their own continuance. The initiate has two souls, the soul of his earth mother and his ritual soul. He has passed through the catechism by this stage and is put in readiness for this connection with the ritual soul. Drawn in ochres upon the walls of the Wariaki cave are the rainbow footprints of the all-knowing one, whose face cannot be looked upon. He is depicted in one painting as the whirlwind, and in another as thunder and lightning. He is the Wanambi serpent. We will meet him on the shade side of the rock. In this cave of the Wariaki are the first and only drawings which show a breakaway from the traditional symbols. When the white men came and were seen by the natives, the tribal artists attempted to explain them, their horses, their weapons, to other tribesmen by painting what they had seen upon the walls. In this way, news was spread. One such picture is of a man wearing a hat and riding on an animal, and another portrays a man with a gun shooting an animal. While these do not belong to the ritual of the Wariaki shelter, they foretell, sadly enough, the beginning of the end of the secret sacred rituals. Now that this rock belongs to the Aborigines by government decree, they can again decide how they want it used.
We stand beside what has become one of our national symbols, what Aboriginal Australians know as Uluru, and what the rest of it think of as Ayers Rock. For many Aboriginal people, this place has still deeper meaning and deep spiritual significance.
Minyinderi sang the ritual songs of this cave and explained that the words were something like, "This sacred cave of the Mala is forbidden to women and the uninitiated." We do not know the actual movements of this dance, but to the east of the Wariaki shelter there is, on the rock face, the sign of the Great Mother, the sign of happiness, the central core of the whole ritual. As a relief after the strain of the ceremonies, the men dance before this sign of happiness until they are exhausted with laughter. It is said that insufficient laughter can be overcome by tickling participants with grass. The greater the amount of laughter, the greater the respect shown to the Earth Mother. The section of the ritual exclusive to male initiates ends at this place, for they now move further east to unite with the women at the mother place, where the rituals continue in unison. For the initiates, one could say it is a movement away from the mother to this point and then back to the mother on a different level. That is, they now enter the world of women, not as sons, but as warriors. Now we find where Naltawadi, drawn from the mother's body at the Kunju, has gone. This divide is an enormous slab of rock which appears to lean against the wall of the monolith. It is a fault which runs from top to bottom. It is separate from the rock, but touching the monolith in a few places. The rocks at its base are the sleeping forms of the Dreamtime heroes who carried it to the dividing place. The raising and carrying of the Naltawadi is regarded as the carrying of the phallic symbol. In Aboriginal society, the phallic symbol is not a true fertility symbol. Except for the elders, little connection is made between sexuality and conception. Nor does such a symbol totally represent the genital organ. Rather, it seems to embody the proud status of manhood and power, the hero aspect. Immediately beyond this divide is an area from which men are excluded. The first ritual cave here is the Jugajabi, the cave of women. Its meaning is vulva open. This cave, like that of the Wariaki, is ritually divided. The chant for this cave means, "The women of the camp await us." Their vulva is exposed. The large boulders in front of the Jugajabi represent the women of the dreaming. Holes on the cliff face are made by the digging sticks as they search for food. The dark stains in the cave were caused by cooking fires. With these fires, the women of the dreaming drove away spying people. The spying people were Leru, who are poisonous snake people and always seem to be in disgrace. High in the rock above the Naltawadi is the nest of the Lundbar, the kingfisher bird, whose business it is to warn the people if danger is approaching. From here she watches for spies and warns the women. The chant here says, "Lundbar sits amid her droppings on high. Her magic tells us an evil approaches." Spying on any section of the rites was highly punishable. An Aborigine myth tells of the Njindi Jindi, the Willy Wagtail women, who were speared in this place for spying on the men's rituals. She sat high up on the rock. This spy woman of the dreaming lies now with the spear holes in her body. The ritual songs to do with this have the ring of excitement. The tempo quickens. The tone becomes more shrill. Minyinderi sang them, and he expressed all the excitement of this drama in his singing. The Lundbar has an important function in the ritual. Beyond this point, the rituals are so sacred that very little can be learned of them. But we do learn of the evil intervention, a motive common in myth and ritual. It is here the warning was given by the Lundbar, and we will also learn that this warning was not taken. On the path to this place are many woman stones. These stones are filled with ratapa, or spirit babies. The word ratapa means spirit with a body, or individualized spirit life. This area was the head place from which women went to gather mati, or seeds. Since this was the preparation for the great feast of the initiation, the garnering was no doubt ritually conducted. The seeds were ground into meal on the grinding stones, which had been worn down with use. The dough for the kerungara bread, the ritual bread, was made from this meal, which was mixed with the breast milk of the big sacred women. These priestesses, the big women, were very powerful and extremely sacred. If food was short in the camps at any time, these women were fed first, before even the elders of the tribe. They were represented by an uncle at the sacred council of Kunju, which means tremendous power for women of any tribe. Also, they could veto the laws of the elders. In Jangarawul myth, it is said that women originally owned the magic, which was subsequently stolen by the men. This, however, did not make them feel inferior. They said, "We have really lost nothing, because we remember it all, and we can let them have that small part, for aren't we still sacred?" In another version, they let the men have the magic, saying, "Ah, yes, but we still have the uterus." The raising of the actual women to the status of supernormal is seeing in the women the giver of life and food, the Great Mother herself. No one would dare to say of the big women, "They're only women just like ourselves," any more than the men would say of the bull roarer that it was just a piece of wood which they themselves had carved. These women were the sacred women, and the bull roarer was the creative voice. For the Aborigine, these big women, in their role, kept concrete the sacred creatrix and her law. Minyanderi, speaking of this area of which he knew all the chants, said he knew nothing of the women's rituals, except that they were more colorful than the men's rituals. His wife, who was also an initiate, would give no information. It has always been difficult to learn a great deal about women's rituals. To woman belongs the mystery of the campfire and of love, not only mating, but the love-making that paves the way for the reliving of the ancestors of the dreaming. The mysteries of Eros have always been difficult to express. It is as if the light of day can have a devastating effect upon the shadows of evening. Perhaps these mysteries are like the talk of lovers, so important, so meaningful, so mysterious, yet out of place in public. Here there are other markings on the rock face, the paw marks of the Kurapuni dog, which comes into the rituals at this point. Who is this dog? How did he come to enter the rituals of the Urulu? In earlier times, a kangaroo had struggled with and killed a dingo belonging to the hunter of the Windralga tribe, that is, the Mulga people. From a hole in the ground where the creature was killed came the ritual dog, Kurapuni. The Kurapuni was the mighty one, the avenger. If a man of the Windralga believed that someone of another tribe had caused magically the death of one of his people, he would send this ritual dog to avenge him. Now, in this case, it would mean avenging themselves on the kangaroo ratmen, the Malawadi, because a kangaroo was responsible for the death of the original dog. The Windralga people of the dreaming suspected the Malawadi people of some magic activities and invited them to a council and a big ritual. But because the Mala were busy with their own activities, they did not attend. The refusal was taken as guilt. Since that time, the Kurapuni dog has pursued the initiates of the Malawadi. His coming has a very important bearing on the final ritual, since he is the threat which causes the Lundbar to warn the initiates of his coming. The warning is ritually ignored. The Kurapuni dog is the evil intervention which ultimately achieves or forces progress. He is the dark Mercurius, a trickster, therefore one to be feared. What he does is, in fact, separate the brave from the fearful, and the brave he drags to the place of rebirth. The final and most sacred of the ritual performance takes place here, at the mother place. This is the rock hole of the Ninjinindi, which symbolizes the womb of the mother. It is the place of united ritual. For this much preparation over a period of weeks has been necessary in both male and female camps. The women have gathered food, and the men have prepared body decorations for the initiates, who now face their final ceremony. Here in the mother place, the initiates chant the tribal code before the elders. When they sing the chants, any mistakes return to them. If their chants are correct, they pass into the dark body of the mother in readiness for rebirth. The initiates are here covered with down to symbolize kudinga, that is, eaglets. The feather down is attached with blood or with some of the gummy substances from native trees. In all Aboriginal societies, the habits and manners of an animal or a bird, these are all noted with care and become features of rituals. Thus, the eaglet not yet ready to fly and defenseless in the path of the wild dog is the symbol of these initiates awaiting maturity of status, fearing, hoping, urging towards the fullness of life. The eaglets await this terrifying final act of ritual initiation in a position high up on the rock wall. Amidst chanting, the Kurapuni dog strides over the rock face to catch the initiates and drag them to the ritual trenches and to a symbolic death. At this point, they are insides. That is, they are within the mother's belly. The ritual trench is dug between the Kurapuni dog stone and the mother stone. It is to this place that the eaglets are dragged by the great dog. They are carried amidst chanting to be thrown into the trench. From this ritual trench they are reborn. The initiate comes to this place as a mortal and emerges as an immortal, as one who has a place in the beyond. When the chanting ceases and the initiate rises, he has the red band of eternity placed on his head. The wearing of the red band signifies that he has made the connection with his ritual soul. He has become an outside. In much the same way as the uncrowned king enters the cathedral, an ordinary human being, and emerges with the crown of divine authority on his head, so the initiate is crowned with his red ritual band, a band made from grasses and dyed with natural ochres and colored with the sap from bloodwood trees. In a previous ceremony, he was freed from the physical mother, and now, with the Earth Mother's sanction, he enters the world of warriors. The presence of the Great Mother herself is symbolized by the Kurunguru stone, which has concentric circles marked on it. Hidden away from the weather, slightly underneath this sacred rock, is a thin red line which moves up and down with a flowing movement. This is the serpent, or the ritual path of life. An Aborigine, asked if the drawings represented a movement up and down or zigzag along the earth, stated emphatically that the ritual path was zigzag. He illustrated the vital difference with his forefinger. This serpent-like line has exclusively to do with the mother, and is the central and most important feature of the mother ritual. The line of the serpent is retraced at each ritual, and as this is done, the men cry aloud and they chant the slow song. The serpent is the path of life, the course of rivers, and the path of the womb, which is made by ritual deflowering. It is, in fact, life to do with the mother world, the earth, concrete reality. The Kurunguru stone, where the serpent is painted, represents the death of the Great Mother, of all tribes, and her rebirth. The death and rebirth of the Creatrix herself is the mythologem of sacrifice. The Mother subjects herself to annihilation in order to resurrect. This is the sacred and crucial phase of death and rebirth in the mysteries of initiation. It has the connotation of spiritual renewal rather than the reincarnation, which concerned the participants of the first phases. Followers of the Mother go with her to death, experience the ritual within themselves. In the dreaming, not all the eagles go into the ritual trench. Some flee in terror. Minyandere says that it is the most terrifying experience to be in this trench, covered with branches, hearing the chants. But the fate of those who flee is even more terrifying. A few hundred yards from the mother place are numerous rock juttings. These are the fleeing people, the lost men of the dreaming. They have no ritual soul, no ancestor connection. Once the initiate emerges from the ritual trench, as an outside, another chant is sung. It is now that the participants break and eat the ritual bread. This eating of the Kurunguru bread is the communion meal of good faith, in which the fleeing ones cannot be included. The breaking of the bread is done in the shadows. The confessions at the Kunja were also told in the shadows. It seems that there is a special divine presence in such shady areas, which puts the initiate in touch with his spiritual reality. This life of the spirit turns the activities from the mundane to the meaningful. It turns men into artists. The rites, however, are practical. The aim is, on the one hand, security in this world, and on the other, arrangements for reincarnation. There is no love of the Great Mother, no fervor of worship. She is obeyed for practical reasons. When rituals for the dead are held, it is because it is absolutely necessary to ensure that the dead do not become rock sitters, poyani. It is not the future of the dear departed that matters. What does matter is that this one will go safely through the rock to the Great Mother, where he cannot come amongst the tribal people and harm or annoy them. The return of the Great Mother after death seems to be one of the most important underlying thoughts behind the whole of these rituals. For young people, death was abnormal. It was always thought that such a death was the result of evil magic, a fact which led to retaliation and death magic. For old people, death was natural, and a man would have a place where he preferred to sit and await death. In the Zarathustra seminars, page 1542, Jung says, the completion of the sun-over rituals brings us to the shade side of the rock. These are the Maggie Springs, a perpetual fall of water known to the Aborigines as the Mutijula. 200 feet above, in the folds of the rock, is a wooded valley. The trees cannot be seen from ground level, but looking down from above, from a sheer 1,000-foot drop, one can see them. This is the sacred home of the Wanambi serpent. He is the presiding spirit of the whole mountain, and the knower of all things. The waters are his tears. Wanambi cries for his people. This serpent is the unmentionable and unknowable. He is the unknowable who puts his stamp on earth through the rainbow serpent. His sacred name, Wanambi, means rainbow. He has the rainbow quality which touches the earth, but itself remains untouchable. He is the guardian of the rock. The Wanambi is not connected with day-to-day existence. Somehow he is connected with and prior to the dreaming. On the west side of this entrance to the Maggie Springs is a cave known to us as the Emu Cave. This cave had some of the best preserved paintings at the rock. It was a waiting place for hunters. Opposite, from high on the top of the rock, a native watcher gave the sign when the emus came in, and the warriors rushed out to spear the birds. If food comes to one while one is resting, it's even more convenient than the supermarket. But leaving this area of the Mutujula, passing the Emu Cave on the west side of the cul-de-sac, we pass around an area which is an important feature of the big myth of the Shade Side. The rituals of the men of the Sunover Side have to do with social order and spiritual welfare. Here, under the protection of the Wanambi serpent, rituals have to do with human life. The caves of the women are quite large and divided naturally into rooms. First, the cave of human birth, which is guarded by the Bulari stone. Bulari of the dreaming gave birth in this area, and some informants say the protection stone is her body, and the cave itself is her womb. In this cave, blackened from ages of fire using, where stones were worn smooth by human bodies, is one of the 3 rubbing stones of Uluru. These stones, like all sacred stones, embody a virtue obtainable only by the process of rubbing. The act of rubbing is the renewing of the sacred life within the object, and the putting of the individual in connection with its innate spirit. The rubbing stone inside the cave of birth, a stone in the form of a small huddled child, was rubbed clean and smooth by the hands of pregnant women over thousands of years, a testimony of faith and of living, the sort of faith that had made it possible for them to live in the heart of the desert. The area and the cave itself are convenient places for childbirth. It was considered very fortunate to have been born here, under the shade of the great Wanambi spirit, and in the protection of the Great Mother. On the wall of one cave is a figure formed from pecking. This is a sketch of it, for it could not be photographed. It is the Great Mother. The rays of life are about her head, and the python at her feet. For the Aborigine, the white radiating lines are spirit, and the serpent, as we saw on the Sunover side, is the path of life. Myth motives occurring independently in all cultures may be the link to human understanding. On this level, there is a means of communication in spite of racial differences. Perhaps it is for this reason that one is so moved when one stands in front of this faint pecking. It is in these caves that the big women reside, those who provide the milk for the Kurungara bread, and who are held in such high esteem. The flour of the Kurungara bread is made from a small black seed the size of sago, the seed of the grass wanganu, which grows in this area. This seed has been found to be rich in vitamin E. It is used by the women for many purposes, all recorded in the chants. All food for all tribal members is allotted according to law, so there is no bickering about who should have any particular part of the animal. The child's food supply also comes under tribal law, as do details of the child's rearing. The grandmother is greater than the mother, so she does all the work for the new child. This is her privilege. Tribal women are extremely tolerant towards their children. In fact, the child is always right, might be their slogan. This leniency continues to the time of initiation. Then children are separated from freedom and the tolerance of women. It is an interesting point that the Australian Aborigine gives no thanks, a fact often misunderstood. Bill Harney said that going once a year to the rituals was considered an adequate mark of thanks. To thank a human is to deny the dreaming. Another interesting point is that he does not borrow. If one of his fellow men wants something, and he feels he wants to give it to him, he does. But he never lends. That way he only gives what he doesn't want. Giving what one wants oneself is thought senseless. The giving saves complications. And he never bargains. He has a price for his goods or some adequate exchange. If that's not forthcoming, then there's no business. This stone symbolizes the recompense that can come to people who obey tribal law. The innate quality of the stone relates to all people, regardless of color. The only requirement is that of belief. If one rubs the backbone of the sleeping kunia, then one will receive the gifts which are within oneself. If there are love and fullness, one gets an abundance of the same. If there is hatred and anger, one will get that in plenty. It is the big stone of the myth, and it is kept clean by the activities and lives of people. Above the stone on the cliff face is a long kumbunduru that ends in a place that looks like a rock hole. That place is the center of the deadly chant that can destroy people. The headman of that chant is the one to be feared. Only under extreme conditions is it permissible to sing it. For these people, there are only two ways. One is right side, the other wrong side. The sun symbolizes right side and is feminine. The moon symbolizes wrong side and is masculine. The moon is the bringer of unrest. The sun travels a straight course, they say. The moon goes off course, gets all wrong side. So with only two ways, right side or wrong side, the judgments are simple and uncomplicated. A myth relating to the shade side helps to make clear what is meant by right and wrong. In the dreaming, the carpet snake people, or the kunia, had made their abode at Uluru. Now the carpet snake is non-poisonous. But there roam throughout the country the leru, or poisonous snake people, who caused a great deal of trouble. We first met them in the Sunover side, where they were spying on sacred rituals. The tale goes as follows. The aurora australis lit the southern skies with flame. Some lizard people, a tribe who were kin to the kunia, were cooking an emu they'd found. While doing this, they looked to the south, towards the camp of the leru, the poisonous snake people. When the lizard men saw the brilliant lights of the aurora, they knew immediately that it was the flames of the poisonous snake. With haste, they hid the emu. One can see the rocks, a leg here, another there, all conforming the quick dismembering of the bird. Now two strangers, Leru people, arrived. They said they were looking for a sacred emu, but they'd lost its trail. The lizard men denied all knowledge of the emu, and even refused hospitality to the strangers, who asked for some of their food. The infuriated strangers took a firebrand from the cooking fire and destroyed the lizard men. Their fallen bodies can still be seen at the foot of the cliff face. Smoke from the destruction of their camp still colors the walls. A great Kunia man, whose camp was to the east, heard of the plight of his kinfolk and whisked round the rock to talk to the two offending Leru strangers. So excited was the otherwise quiet Kunia man that his teeth shot out. That was an insult which must be avenged. More Leru had gathered. One was a friend and warned the Kunia. The Leru came on. That aroused one of the big sacred women, who shouted to them not to attack, crying, "We are a peaceful people." However, they did attack. So the great Kunia man came, and he killed them. One Leru had his nose severed by a big woman, who had come from the rock, hissing and spitting foam. These marks can still be seen on the top of the rock. This myth shows the necessity to handle evil consciously. if one is in danger of being overthrown by it. The Kunia were called keepers of the evil, which suggests the realization that ignorance or even innocence does not save one, but the right handling of evil saves one from falling victim to it. This myth is the basis of the laws relating to strangers. A wrong attitude invites anger and attack, and the need of retaliation, therefore. It is necessary to have rituals to counterbalance any evil intention on the stranger's part. To ensure this, the stranger is baptized in the waters of the Mutadula. The baptism words are strength in faith at the Wanambi place. A person thus baptized would not betray the host for the duration of his stay. He is a tribal member and under the protection of the law. We have the saying which translated means, "Cursed is he who takes of another's food and betrays him." Baptizing the stranger means disarming him, not in order to do him any harm, but to be in control of evil. That requires an awareness of evil. It becomes the poisonous spittle, but with it in one's safekeeping, the non-poisonous life can be lived. The two lizard men were naive people who play right into the hands of evil and wonder at the power that they so blindly arouse. Blessed safety lies in fear, says Hamlet. In such a myth as that of the Leru and the Kunia, there is the seed of reflection. The lizard men were unreflecting and fearless, and so they were destroyed. There are two boulders not far from Mutadula, which are the sleeping bodies of the strangers who asked the lizard men for food. Bilhani wrote of these, "My informants repeatedly told me that, as with all symbols around the mountain, the sleeping strangers were still alive in the stones. Today, these are increased stones, and strangers passing by always rub them for an increase of sleeping lizards, a delicacy to the Aborigines. So it seems that the stones keep close watch over tribal activities and make certain that hospitality laws are obeyed. Thus, they are a constant reminder of sacred obligations. The myth of Uluru does not tell of creation and nothing more. No. Through ritual observance, the myth conditions the tribe. The myth and its demands have to be lived. That is exactly what we know of the archetypes or dominance of the collective unconscious. The myths are like drives, and the drives make the man. In the vision seminars, Jung says, "You appear in your deed, nowhere else. We shall know them by their works." It is not a man's biology that counts. That is not his humanness. His myth is his humanness.
These Aborigines had asked Bill to keep the deep mysteries of Uluru because they didn't want them lost. Nobody had been there for so long.
Is there anything else you want to say about it?
I will say one thing, that it has a remarkable feeling to be there. Standing there in the dawn with only Bilhani, there were no people at the rock when we were there. And it gives one the feeling of being at the beginning of time. The rock had a remarkable effect on one.
That you've never forgotten.
Never.
Thank you.
Manda yuranga ngare ngumanda yuranga ngare